So what's going on? So Will Smith and Chris Rock. Everybody's giving their opinion on it. I'm gonna give mine. So let's do that. Uh, I was watching Jason Whitlock's show, the Fearless, on the Blaze. And if you're not watching, that's a good show. I'll try to link it in the description. The the one was speaking about. He's been talking about the Will Smith Chris Rock thing pretty much all week, I think. But um, it was interesting because they were talking about what he was saying was that people were actually taking the Will Smith situation and saying that this was like a great example of masculinity. And it was interesting because as I was listening to that, what came to my mind um, was something specific popped in my mind biblically, and I'm gonna get into that. But what's funny is that like 15 minutes later, I'm listening, and Shamika Michelle, who is a regular guest on Whitlock's show, said exactly the same thing. So she was seeing it that way too. Um, so one first thing I want to do is discuss whether it was fake or not. I've heard people whose opinion I like on a lot of other things, say they think that that was fake, and I can understand why they think that. I don't think it was fake though. Um, Couple reasons why they think it was fake. First of all, the Oscars ratings suck. I mean, it worked. If it was fake, this was a great fake because what it's doing is everybody's talking about it. Also, if you notice, clearly seems like Will Smith pulled the punch, for lack of a better term, right? Slap. He pulled the slap. Um, and I think also Chris Rock stood a little awkwardly, almost like he seemed to be prepared for it. But I think you can account for that just with the situation, right? Pulling the slap. You're not trying to physically hurt somebody when you slap them. This was Will Smith's attempt to embarrass Chris Rock for embarrassing him. That's what this was. This didn't really happen. He's not out to hurt uh, Chris Rock. He's out to embarrass him. So mission accomplished to a certain extent, but I think he embarrassed himself a lot more than what Chris Rock got embarrassed by. Just the concept of slapping a 130, 140 pound comedian, that's not really. I don't know, how brave that's supposed to look in people's eyes, right? And then Chris Rock had this weird, expression, sort of leaned his head out a little bit. He probably, if some guy comes up to you kind of with a weird look on their face, I would assume you want to take a step back a little bit, at least put your hands up, just in case you need to use your hands, get a little bit defensive. You know, you don't want to throw a punch, but you want to make sure you're spry if one's thrown, right? Um, and he seemed to be not ready, but almost anticipating it. But that can be accounted for by the fact that he told a joke about his wife, and then he stands up and comes toward him. He may not really know what's going to go on, but that's got to be some sort of an option in his mind. That there's some altercation fixing to happen, and man, when he pulls his head forward, maybe he's like, well, he's going to tell me something, he's going to say something, so things can be accounted for. Awkwardness of the whole situation, maybe a little smiles here and there. It's an awkward situation. Chris Rock's trying to pull it off. Will Smith just got done laughing. So the whole thing was just completely awkward to start with, but I don't think it was staged. I think it was natural. I think the whole thing's very awkward because it is a naturally awkward situation. And for those of you, I hope most people want to know what's going on, and realize this really wasn't about alopecia. I mean, first of all, Jada Pinkett, her whole career, or mostly, at least for me, the most memorable times I remember seeing her in movies or shows, she's always had short hair. I mean, there's been times where she's had long hair, sure, but it's no stranger to short hair for her. So this idea that it's some tragedy that she's lost her hair, she just went back to where she was before at various points in her life. So I don't really think that this is such a tragic need for some protection. It's not alopecia isn't some sort of you know life-threatening thing or anything like that. So this defense concept really kind of falls out of the way for that for me. And what's really going on is their marriage. Everybody knows, or a lot of people know. I don't follow these people. By these people, I mean stars, and I don't really care, you know, for any of that stuff. I don't like anything they represent, so um, I don't really want any part of it for the most part. So, but even I'm aware of their marital issues, namely that they are in uh, what they've described as an open marriage, and it basically sort of came to light as she publicly just admitted that she's sleeping with other guys. So you can imagine this idea of how that seems to Will Smith. Like, what does that say about Will Smith, right? So the idea that, and if you remember when after he slapped Chris Rock, he sits down, he says, keep my wife's name out your effing mouth, that sentence is, it's an interesting sentence because you could rearrange it. he's he's not talking to Chris Rock. Like, he's talking to the universe at this point. I mean, he should be talking to those dudes who, are doing who knows what with his wife, right? And I'm sure it's reciprocal in this sense, and not with his wife and the guys. I'm sure that's reciprocal too, but I mean, I'm sure Will's out doing his thing too. And if I had to guess, that's probably what started her on her mission. He's probably out. I mean, if you understand how Hollywood works, there's this casting couch situation. I mean, everybody, most people understand what that is. I don't even have to explain what that is. If I just say casting couch, most people understand what that is. And that's for both girls and guys. So, who knows what dues needed to be paid for these two to have a successful Hollywood career. Um, and that pays that's a heavy price. Sin, one of the things I heard was sin takes you, cost you more than you ever thought you'd pay, takes you further than you ever thought you'd go, and keeps you longer than you ever thought you'd stay. That sort of baggage, that's a burden that is difficult. And so what I think we saw was a natural reaction to a sinful lifestyle, a sinful culture, on display in one of the most decadent uh, situations, a glorification of narcissistic decadence, and the worst of American culture, in my opinion. And so all that weighs on everybody there. They all have to know deep down inside how fraudulent their whole existence really is. I mean, they fake for a living, right? Um, so biblically, I believe the Bible is absolutely true, right? You can find, you want to find the truth, you can find it there. And so part of it is this concept of masculinity. It's twisted, right? This twisted masculinity there, because masculinity is good. But it's twisted in that respect because, he's not showing. You think masculinity is the opposite of weakness. You could make that argument. And there's this term in the Bible called meekness, and it sounds like weakness, but it's not. It's the opposite, actually. Meekness is power under control. It's a discipline. Even the concept of those who follow Jesus, they were called disciples, which is people who are disciplined. They're disciplined under their master, in regards to the ways of their master, right? That's what a disciple is. Um, and let me see, what else did I want to say about this? Oh, the words, right? The idea of, keep my wife's name out your mouth. Now, forget the personal aspect of it, but this is a microcosm for what's going on in our society today. And comedians are bearing the brunt of this to a certain extent because they tell the truth about, and oftentimes tell the truth um, about society. It Comedians oftentimes are a mirror, right? They reflect and point out things in our society. And there's something about our society now where we don't want to see it. We just don't want to see it. So we're going to shut the comedian down now. I think that though, because our society is such a joke, we can't actually take a joke. And I think that's on full display. That the concept of being canceled, what we saw was that on display. Chris Rock was canceled, right? And this twisting of masculinity, this idea that there are people saying, oh, this is masculine. What Will Smith did, defending his wife, defending the black woman, this kind of talk. Um, no, he doesn't. He had that opportunity and he's failed in many, many ways, obviously. His children are confused. His wife isn't his wife, really. It's marriage in name only, right? They're a business arrangement to a certain extent only. And that's unbiblical. And this is the fruit of that. And that's that twisted masculinity, and so they exalt that, right? That the people that would go toxic masculinity would then exalt this, which I'm not going to say this is toxic I can't know how to speak right now, masculinity, um, because I don't think it is. Is strangely enough, it is a twisting of masculinity, but isn't toxic masculinity on display. What this is toxic femininity on display. If you find a picture, and I almost had it primed, but I forgot to. There's a picture of the two, Will and Jada. She's just stewing over this comment, and Will's laughing. And once Will finds out Jada's upset, then Will gets up to strike the, the comedian, the 140-pound comedian. Will is complying with toxic femininity. And I may sound like a chauvinist, but I don't care. I'm going to speak the truth. Our society is dealing with that right now. Um, I just saw, and man, I wish I had this primed up, um, a video today of a lady berating somebody because he was a Trump supporter, had a Trump shirt, something like that. Her husband's standing there not doing nothing, not saying nothing. Um, they're twisting everything. Men and women are being, everything's just getting all out of balance. That's why we can't have the comedian that's the mirror pointing back at us. We don't want to look. We don't want to look at this. And that's also why we lash out in these ways. That's why I think that's what we saw. And that feminine energy, it's in the Bible. It's in the Bible. Like I said, the Bible's got the truth in there. The power of the words in James, and then also, the irony is there for me, because here Will Smith is he's getting ready to accept an Academy Award for his role in King Richard. But he's sitting there and we see him for who he is. He's King Ahab, one of the kings of Hollywood, and his Jezebel wife.